When it comes to noise cancelling headphones, there have been two major brands seeking to battle it out for the crown of best ANC cans: Sony and Bose. Since its QC35s, Bose has been seen as among the best out there, but Sony's recent crop of WH-1000X series headphones have also been exceptional. And for 2022, that series got an update. But the question is, how does the 1000XM5 compare to the Bose Noise Cancelling 700s? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video I'll spill all the details. If you do like it, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more. It's fair to say that when it comes to design, Sony has improved things considerably from the previous models, at least when it comes to the looks, but it still doesn't quite match the Bose when it comes to seamless surfaces and premium materials. There are just a few more lines and seams in the Sony pair, but that doesn't make any difference to how it feels to wear. Both headphones weigh about the same, 250 grams, and they're really comfortable to wear for long periods. What we found with the larger hole in the ear cup on the Sony meant they did feel that they fit a little easier around the ear. Bose has a bit more of a close, snug thing going on. Sony's does have a chunkier look to it on the head when worn, but Bose's design means you have gaps between the side of your head and the band that are much larger. Sony's in general feels lighter and more invisible, like you can just ignore that they're there. The interesting difference is how they compare when you go to adjust the height and the angle of the ear cup. Sony has these rounded stalks that disappear inside the headband, where Bose has a bit more of a clever design, where the steel headband remains fixed and the ear cups move up and down the ends. But they're both really easy to adjust and can rotate and change angle to fit a variety of head sizes. There doesn't appear to be much difference in the range of adjustment either. As for portability, there's not much in this either. Neither pair is foldable really. The ear cups can rotate so that they store flat in their respective carrying cases, and both cases have a little storage area for carrying cables and such with you. Bose's again seems a bit more compact than the Sony and takes up a little less space in the bag. However, there are materials to consider. Sony has attempted to use more sustainable materials and has designed the fabric case in a way that makes it easy to squeeze down a little smaller when it's empty. Okay, so buttons and functionality, and here again the two pairs are relatively similar. Neither is loaded with lots of buttons. Bose has a minimally designed button on each ear with no text or any indication as to what they do. So on the right cup, the main button activates your assistant. On the left, it's for adjusting the noise cancelling strength. It also has the power pairing button on one cup, but that's it. In contrast, Sony put a power and pairing button and the noise cancelling switch on the same cup and labelled them, and that's it. There's no extra buttons. On the one hand, the labelling makes it easier to figure out what they do. On the other, it's not exactly pretty. You also get a USB-C port for charging and a port for wired audio on both headphones. Sony has a standard 3.5mm here, and Bose the less standard 2.5mm. But it's the controls that you can't see that make these two headphones a little bit more interesting, because both headphones feature touch-sensitive controls on the right ear cup, and this you can use to change the volume, skip tracks, or play and pause music. But design does play a part in the experience of what it's like to use these controls. Because Sony's exterior surface is completely uninterrupted, it feels easier to use than Bose's, which has the surface interrupted by that headband and limits you to a smaller surface area. But they do both work well, giving you a really easy way to perform these basic tasks. Both headphones are smart too, in that you can enable Amazon's Alexa smart assistant on them regardless of whether you have an iPhone or an Android. Pair them with an Android phone and you'll get Google Assistant as an option as well. Another smart feature is that both pairs allow you to be connected to two devices at the same time, so you can switch between music and calls when you need to without having to disconnect and repair and reconnect to another device. They also both feature Google Fast Pair support, so you can put them next to your Android phone in pairing mode and you'll see an easy pop-up window appear for easy connection, and easy access from any other Android device that you might have. Moving on to sound and noise cancelling and other stuff. When it comes to sound, it's always interesting to hear what each company feels is great sound. And while both are genuinely great to listen to, there are some significant differences in the way they approach this. And that's not just because of how they sound initially upon setup, but also because of customization choices. The thing that stood out to us when listening to them side by side when the Sony and the Bose set to their default out-of-the-box EQ balance was how much more bass and warmth the Sony tends to go with. In some instances, it gets quite boomy and loses a bit of the texture and detail when you're listening to a track with quite a prominent and loud bass line. it can be a bit overbearing. Bose's, in comparison, feels cleaner and a bit breathier and more neutral with more prominent trebles. When you switch between the headphones on every song, those extra trebles sometimes sound a bit harsh after listening to the Sony, but the bass is a bit more controlled. Where when you switch from Bose to Sony, the sense is lots of bass. And sometimes that's a very good thing. It lets you really get into the music and feel it. Other times, not so much. The other thing I felt when listening to the two is that Sony sound like they have a wider soundstage. That, depending on the instrument mix, means that the far right and left channels feel further away than they do on the Bose, so you get this more immersive feeling to your music experience. Now, when there is a lot of bass on the Bose, you can hear it and feel it without it sounding like it's losing its shape. I also found that the balance of sound made it easier to hear some of the more subtle details in the background tracks. However, the Sony app lets you do a lot more customization with the sound to find one that suits you. Sony's app gives you more frequencies to tweak, where Bose has a simplified EQ control that just has bass, mid and treble. However, even with the bass ramped up and more prominent, the Bose didn't tend to get that textureless booming effect like Sony's did when the bass got really loud. However, there's a lot of flexibility in Sony's approach, and even the ability to create and save your own presets. So you could, for instance, have a preset for calls, a preset for dance or rock, and then another for when you're listening to acoustic or folk or slow songs, to make the most of every scenario, whatever your preference and what your desires are. What's more, with the right devices and the right services, you get access to things like LDAC high-res audio on the Sony, and also Dolby Atmos or spatial audio, where you don't get any of those with the Bose. So that can take your listening experience to a whole nother level. When it comes to noise cancelling, it's sort of the other way around. Both will let you enable it, disable it, and switch on an ambient mode to hear what's going on around you clearly, and you can cycle through those by pressing the button on the headphones. However, Bose also lets you adjust the strength of the noise cancelling on a sliding scale between 1 and 10, so you get a bit more of a fine-tuned control over how much noise you're cancelling from the outside. Both offer very good noise cancelling though, regardless of whether you're listening to music or making calls. They effectively kill most of the surrounding ambience, whether you're in a busy coffee shop, on a plane, or on your daily commute through busy stations. Granted, with no music playing, neither will completely cut out the outside noise, but once you put the volume around 50% listening to music, you'll struggle to hear much of what's going on around you. Sony does seem a tiny bit better in general, but the difference isn't massive. Sony does seem to be a bit better at dealing with wind noise as well. Now there's one last thing to consider here, and that's battery life. And if a lot of the other features are personal preference, this one is objectively not. Sony's is just better here, and considerably so. Even with a digital noise cancelling enabled, you can get 30 hours of music playback from the Sony's. Of course, actual mileage varies depending on a few different factors, but regardless, they'll easily outlast the Bose's maximum 20 hours of playback. With ANC switched off, they'll get you nearly 40 hours of playback. Because of this, the fast charging is also more effective. Just 3 minutes plugged into power delivery adapter will get you 3 hours of playback on the Sony. It takes 15 minutes to get the same level of charge from the Bose. In the end, you'll struggle to get better noise cancelling headphones than either of these two, particularly in this price point. Sony beats Bose though in terms of features and battery life and sound customization, and some of you might actually prefer the bassier, heavier sound. Plus, the touch controls are easier to use as well. From a design, fit and feel perspective though, I preferred the Bose, and you may actually find that you prefer the sound profile on the Bose as well because it's a bit less bass heavy. Plus, because these are an older pair now, they're quite a lot more affordable than the Sony, even though that when they launched they were a similar price to what Sony's are now. In the UK, for instance, currently they're comfortably under the £300 mark. So if you want to save some money, you can comfortably choose the Bose without feeling like you're missing out on too much. However, there is this general sense for me, and for others who have tested these headphones, that the Sony are just probably the best headphones out there right now overall. So if you have the cash, they're definitely worth spending it on. Let me know what you think of these two headphones in the comments down below, or you can grab me on Twitter. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up. It'll be much appreciated. Tap subscribe and the notification bell, and that way you don't miss any more of our uploads. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.